opportunity for silent prayer or meditation. Thanks. Please be seated.
Speaker, could you just tell Minister Sisulu the rules of the House that the phone must be on silent or off?
Order, honorable members. The only item on the order paper is questions addressed to the Deputy President. Members may, of course, press the talk button on their desks if they wish to ask a supplementary question. And I wish to remind honorable members that the names of members requesting supplementary questions will be cleared as soon as the Honorable Deputy President starts answering the fourth supplementary question. The first question has been asked by the Honorable Coleman, the Deputy President.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for the opportunity. Honorable Coleman, on the 23rd of March 2018, the international rating agencies, Moody's Investor Services, announced that they've maintained South Africa's investment grade rating. Just as important, Moody's changed the outlook on South Africa's debt from negative to stable. We view this as a significant shift in the current sentiments of international investors towards us and a vote of investor confidence in the South African economy. Moody's made their decision following meetings with broad sectors of our economy, government and the private sector. And in the announcement, they said the following, I quote, "The confirmation of South Africa's rating reflects Moody's view that the previous weakening of South Africa's institutions will gradually reverse under a more transparent and predictable policy framework." Close quote. These positive investor sentiments reflect a recognition of the hard work which has begun by government to move the country's economy and institutions in the right direction. Moody's was clear on acknowledging the gains that South Africa has made under the new leadership of the ANC. And I quote, "The recent change in political leadership appears to have halted a gradual erosion of the strength of South Africa's institution." Close quote. Madam Speaker, it is clear we have not just halted economic decline, but we've also embarked on a path of economic recovery and the restoration of investor confidence in our economy as a country. It must be noted that this is the third consecutive time the South African economy has escaped a downgrade. With a stable outlook, Moody's has affirmed that we are indeed on the right path. This change in outlook from negative to stable is very important for international investors. Many international investors require that their investment go to investment grade, investment only. For those investors who may have been worried about their investment in South Africa, they can now rest easier following the decision by Moody's. In fact, since the decision over a month ago, the rand has relied against the international currencies, such as the US dollar, the euro, and the pound, and has strengthened, thereby reflecting the growing positive sentiment. Although this development is a positive one, it does place our trade-exposed sectors under more severe pressure. According to the Rand Merchant Bank Bureau of Economic Research, business confidence index rose 11 points during the first 3 months of 2018, showing a significant increase in confidence in 6 years. This means that the confidence and optimism of South Africa's manufacturers, building contractors, retailers, wholesalers, and new vehicle dealers has grown. We are now working to ensure that this renewed optimism leads to real and inclusive economic growth and job creation for the country. Since the announcement by Moody's, we've also seen an increase in the demand for South African government bonds. This reflects the greater confidence from our international and local investors in our economy. Increased demand for South African government bonds, it's a good news as it translates into lower interest rates for South Africa, both in the public and private sector. In the end, consumers ultimately benefit. This means less money is needed to service our debt, and more money is available for investment and consumption of goods and services, which can drive our economy. While economic growth exceeded the government's forecast last year, we can and should do even more through the restored investor confidence in our economy. As Africa's most industrialized economy, there's a huge potential to stimulate economic growth by more direct foreign investment in South Africa. The positive change in investor sentiment and the stable economic outlook will support and underpin the President's call for $100 billion investment over the next 5 years. Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker.
The Honorable Coleman.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Deputy President, you referred to investment sentiment and the impact of ratings on the economy. Could you provide us with an example of the kind of effect that this could have on jobs and industrialization? Just to contextualize this question, I note that a few years ago, the Highveld Steel Mill went into business rescue and closed its manufacturing facility. A lot of workers were laid off. Can the Deputy President provide details of what has been the recent development at the Highveld Steel facility, the role of the positive market sentiment and partnerships used to address the need of creating jobs for workers and local communities affected by the plant closure? I thank you.
The Honorable Deputy President.
Thank you very much. Highveld Steel was placed under business rescue. And of course, we succeeded to secure investors. As we speak, Highveld Steel is operational. It has employed more than 800 people. We are producing steel. There are more downstream SMMEs that are housed in Highveld Steel, trying to beneficiate the steel. Of course, it's not an easy task want to applaud the management of Highveld Steel for the perseverance. I think they are on the right track. There's still a lot of work to do, but we can say this kind of confidence will allow them to attract more investors to invest in Highveld Steel. Thank you very much.
The Honorable Hlengwa.
Ngiyathokoza Somlomo. Honorable Deputy President, I'm going to assume that the thoroughness of your response in terms of the attitude now of government towards rating agencies has changed, because we are coming from an area where from that very podium, rating agencies were dismissed as people who are interfering. So I'd like to then find out what initiatives are in place insofar as the new administration is concerned to strengthen the working relationships between government and these rating agencies, so that whatever it is that is their output, their assessment and findings, finds better resonance in government's policy making. And secondly, Honorable Deputy President, the issue is all the niceties that you spell out. In the final analysis, the poorest of the poor in this country remain poor, and recent reports say we are the most highly unequal society in the world. And so do all these things that you say translate into tangible results for the poorest of the poor in this country? Thank you.
The Honorable Deputy President. Honorable Hlengwa, those were two questions. And I'm going to request honorable members to stick to one follow-up question. The Honorable Deputy President.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I think as a country and as a government, we have acknowledged that we cannot be a referee and a player at the same time. It's important to allow external people to criticize, and we must take these criticisms very positive and try and correct where necessary. So I can tell that our attitude towards these rating agencies will change and will understand exactly their role. So we are taking their comments very serious, and we're trying to address the issues that they are raising. But above all, they are concerned about political stability beyond the performance of our institutions. Now that we have restored the credibility of our institutions, and we're in the process of reversing certain things that were seen to be wrong in their eyes, we must continuously deal with the political stability of the country, so that people with their monies can have confidence in this country that when we borrow their money, we can pay the debts. Now, with regards to the inequalities in the country, unemployment, poverty, these are issues that we're grappling with. That is why the President took it upon himself, realizing the positive mood. We had to ride on the wave to say, here we are as a country, we are calling on investors to come, we are opening our hands, and we're prepared to welcome you. And I'm sure these moves will yield good results, and as a country we should be prepared to welcome those investors, because they will help us to deal with the levels of unemployment, they will help us to deal with poverty and inequality. But it's a long journey that we must travel. Thank you very much.
The Honorable Sheikh Imam.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Honorable Deputy President, it is obvious that some benefit as a result of disinvestment in South Africa, and we as South Africans need to sell ourselves to foreign investors. How, Deputy President, do you believe are some of the, or what do you believe are some of the stumbling blocks in boosting investor confidence in South Africa? And what role can the media and opposition political parties play to encourage investment in South Africa? Thank you.
Honorable Deputy President.
Well, all of us as a country, we must act in unison. We must realize that we can only survive through external forces that will have an impact in our day-to-day economic activities. We can't, as a country, isolate ourselves. Therefore, as we criticize ourselves, we must be mindful that our criticism must be constructive. They must seek to build a country for all of us. It's not only for the party that is leading government, but it's for everyone. Criticisms should be directed to correct, not to destroy. Now, we must be patriotic, all of us, and defend our country. Of course, those that are being criticized must take criticisms very serious and seek to correct those things that are being pointed out. But as a country, from where we're coming from, we are coming from a divided past, and I can see that we are seeking to unite and have a common vision. This Parliament probably should play a very central role in bringing that unity of purpose of a country that is working towards addressing its own problems. It's a fact that as a country, we have got a high unemployment rate that must worry all of us. And this kind of unemployment affects the most precious of our society, young people. That must take over from all of us sitting here. Therefore, it must concern all of us if these young people are sitting idling. This is energy that we must put in good use for our own sake. Therefore, the problems that we're confronting does not really rest on the governing party alone. The governing party can do what it can do, but we need partnerships. We need the private sector, civil society, work together to achieve certain outcomes. In that way, the country will progress. Thank you very much.
The Honorable Mainir.
Can I have a point of...
Thank you, Speaker.
There's a point of order. Deputy President, can you take a seat?
Honorable Speaker, I was just saying that we know that it's our prerogative to interject, but I would ask you to protect us because some of our colleagues on this side of the House make a running commentary while the Deputy President is speaking, to the extent that we can't hear what the Deputy President is saying.
Yes, that point of order is sustained and in order. Honorable members, may I appeal to you, please don't have a running commentary. Honorable Mainir, please proceed.
Thank you, Speaker. The independence and technical strength of the South African Reserve Bank has been and was critical to sustaining Moody's investment-grade rating of South Africa. So will the Deputy President tell us whether he supports proposals to review the mandate of and nationalize the South African Reserve Bank? Because he must realize that if he does support those proposals, that they will shatter investor confidence and make a downgrade to junk status more likely in South Africa.
The Honorable Deputy President.
Thank you very much. I can see you taking your luck on this question. It's a new question. It's a new question. We are looking at the comments made by these institutions. At no stage where these institutions, the Moody's, have reflected on the Reserve Bank. They reflected on institutions that in their mind were sort of regressing. And they are happy now that it looks like we are now reversing the tide. Not only the Reserve Bank. So I'm not going to comment on the Reserve Bank, unfortunately.
Speaker.
I am now coming, if that is it, Honorable Deputy President, I would like to move us to the next question. Honorable Mainir.
Speaker, on a point of order,
What's the
Honourable
point of
Deputy
order?
President is misleading the House. I'm going to quote from the Moody's review, which he quoted earlier, which reads, "The technical strength and independence of South Africa's media, civil society, and institutions, including the Reserve Bank and the judiciary, have been critical in sustaining the country's credit profile, etc." The Deputy President must answer the question.
I don't want now to move us to a fifth question or a fifth supplementary question. The Honorable Deputy President has said he is not commenting on the Reserve Bank, and I would therefore like to move.
Madam Speaker.
Yes, Honorable Steenhuisen.
Madam Speaker, on a point of order, the whole point of this exercise is to hold the executive accountable. The
Yes.
question, you must agree, Madam Speaker, the question is directly, as directly related to the original question as the Highveld Steel question. Why is the ANC allowed to ask questions like that, but the opposition cannot? Also, the executive can't choose how they're held accountable by this legislature. It's their duty to submit to the oversight and accountability. And I would urge you, Madam Speaker, as a presiding officer, to please ask the Deputy President to answer the question, which is completely germane to the original question.
Honorable members, order. I'm simply reminding you that the Deputy President has already told us he does not intend commenting on the area of the Reserve Bank.
Speaker, on a point of order, the President doesn't get to choose which questions he's going to answer.
Honorable Deputy Speaker, Honorable Deputy Speaker, Honorable Speaker, Honorable Speaker.
I was looking for the Deputy Speaker.
My apologies, Honorable Speaker.
Yes, Honorable Deputy Chief Whip.
Honorable Speaker, the Deputy President responded to the question. So he doesn't have to be told by the DA how to respond to the question. May we proceed to the next question, Honorable Speaker? I think.
Madam Speaker.
Honorable Steenhuisen.
I'm sorry, and I really don't mean to make your life difficult, Madam Speaker, but this is at the heart of what our job is. This is not the DA, it's an individual member of Parliament who's asked the question. Every single member of Parliament here has exactly the same rights as any other member. Now, Madam Speaker, if you're not going to allow that question to be answered, I would ask you to then please make a ruling that you're regarding that question as having been answered, so at least we as the opposition have some recourse. At the moment, we have a member of the executive who's simply refusing to answer a question that's been put to him. So please make a ruling that in your opinion the question has been answered, so that we can then take it to the Rules Committee. But you can't leave it with this dead end here, where our job and duty is to hold them accountable is being stymied and stifled with no point of accountability for us.
Honorable members, I wish to bring an end to the matter of the supplementary question asked by Honorable Mainir by saying, if you insist that you want him to comment on something he has already indicated he will not do, then let us pursue the matter after this session. because we can't go round and round in circles. I now wish us to move to question 8.
Speaker.
Honorable Menir, I know you want the Deputy President to answer your question, but I'm saying there's no point in you getting up and pursuing that.
Speaker, the point of order which I raised, I said the Deputy President had misled the House. Now, the Deputy President told this House that Moody's did not refer to the Reserve Bank in its review. I have that document here, and I've quoted from it, and it does refer to the Reserve Bank. The Deputy President told an outright lie.
Honorable Menir, I wish to ask you to desist from pursuing this matter, and I repeat that because I do not intend having us go round and round on the same spot. Shall we move and pursue the issue outside the sitting? I am not allowing you, Honorable Menir.
The Deputy President.
Honorable Menir, please take your seat. Please take your seat now.
He clearly is not on top of his brief.
We now come to question number 8, honorable members.
And does not understand the question. It was an outright
which has been asked by the Honorable Swart.
Madam Speaker, point of order.
Honorable.
Madam Speaker, the member there says the Deputy President told a lie in the House. Now, we would want him to withdraw that part that says the Deputy President told a lie. The second thing, Madam Speaker, once you have made a ruling, members are not supposed to contest your ruling in the House. And members of the DA are continuously disrupting the House and contesting your rulings.
Madam Speaker, I'd be delighted if you made a ruling. Because
the ruling is that we are not proceeding on the matter of a supplementary question as put by Honorable Menir, and we will pursue the concerns outside this session. That is my ruling. We now have come to question number 8. Asked by Honorable Swart. Honorable Deputy President.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Speaker.
As we step off this
Speaker, sorry, my apologies.
Yes, Honorable
Speaker. My apologies.
Excuse me, Honorable Deputy President, can you take your seat? Yes, Honorable
Speaker.
Chauke.
We definitely have to address the shouting and the lies that the DA members are making that side. Now, Speaker, it's really unparliamentary for a member of the DA to shout. But this only happens, Speaker, this only happens when we have opened the bar early, that this behavior you then find in Parliament. Therefore, Speaker, I'm saying that it's unparliamentary that this group that sits in the bar, they come and scream in the House. It had to come to an end. It had to come to an end, Speaker. We cannot allow this. That Max building bar must be closed.
Madam Speaker.
I would like to refer the issue of the bar to the whips.
Madam Speaker, may I say, I'd like to ask a question how he knows who was in the bar. He must have been there himself.
Honorable members, leave the bar out of the House. Can we now have the Deputy President address the question asked by Honorable Swart?
Speaker. Thank you, Speaker. Speaker, we can't entertain gossips, but the point I want to raise, there is an authority that has been quoted by the Deputy President in responding to his question, to the question. And there's an authority, same authority, which has been quoted by Honorable Mary. Now,
Honorable member, we are gone from that question.
The point I'm raising, Speaker, now, if the Deputy President is not going to counter that authority with the authority that he referred to, then it means it must go down into this House as a record that he has lied. Because if you cannot counter it, then it means, so why must we listen to lies here?
I have moved us from that question.
So what are you going to say? Do you agree that he's lying?
We now have
Or you're not going to
moved
go give a
question
ruling?
number 8, and I
Please ask you to sit down. Honorable Deputy President.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. The next question. In the State of the Nation address, the President highlighted some of the steps that had been undertaken at the time to address governance failures in the state-owned companies. Amongst others, he mentioned the following. Action has been taken at ESCOM to strengthen governance, root out corruption, and ensure that work to restore its financial position is implemented as a matter of priority. The Commission of Inquiry into State Capture, headed by the Deputy Chief Justice, is expected to commence its work soon. This will ensure that the extent and the nature of the state capture is established, that confidence in the public institutions is restored, and that those responsible for any wrongdoing are identified. As part of the SONA implementation process, the following steps have been taken. In respect of ESCOM, a new board has been appointed. An acting CEO and CFO have been appointed to strengthen governance. Disciplinary action has been taken against at least 8 senior managers to start the process of rooting out corruption and to stabilize the financial situation in ESCOM. As action in terms of this intervention was intensifying, we have had some of these individuals opting to resign from their positions before disciplinary hearings could even sit to determine their guilt. The process of appointing a full-time CEO and CFO is almost complete. The issues pertaining to coal supplies to some of the power station is receiving attention as we speak. All boards of state-owned companies are in the process of being reviewed and strengthened. At Dinel, changes have been effected with the announcement of a new interim board. So is the case with PRASA. Boards of SOEs have been directed to focus on addressing all governance failures that have impacted negatively on their performance. In addition, boards will prioritize recovery of stolen funds and undertake a review of all contracts to identify those that may have been improperly awarded. Where there are criminal offenses, charges must be brought against those individuals through the relevant authorities to ensure that those that are involved are brought to book. The instances of maladministration and corruption at state-owned companies identified by reports from the Office of the Public Protector, including parliamentary inquiries, have assisted a great deal in highlighting the extent of the problem, and the executive is taking these matters seriously. In instances where forensic and criminal investigation have already been conducted, steps have been taken to ensure that individuals identified by this investigation at the board and executive level are removed from their position through due processes, including suspension and the institution of disciplinary hearings. The President will establish an SOC Council and will announce its mandate in due course. That will help strengthen the work of our state-owned companies. This is work in progress. Progressively relevant ministers will be taking action to strengthen governance, accountability, transparency, and improve performance and financial stability of our state-owned companies, as has been indicated below. Sooner rather than later, the dependence by SOCs on the fiscus must be totally removed. In fact, commercially owned SOCs should be paying dividend to government. We undertake to keep honorable members briefed as this program of reform unfold in these SOCs. Thank you very much.
The Honourable Swart.
Thank you, Honourable Deputy President. I'll be responding on behalf of my colleague, Honourable Steve Swart, who sends his apologies. I have noted your response, but I'm going to read from his response. And that is, it's encouraging that various criminal investigations are ongoing against board directors and management of state-owned enterprises arising from the allegations of state capture. We are also pleased that the Hawks and Asset Forfeiture Unit have made progress in this regard, and the AFU obtaining preservation orders running into millions of rands. What is lacking, however, is the enforcement of sanctions against board directors and management in terms of both the Public Finance Management Act as well as the Companies Act. Sadly, time after time, board members and management are replaced after running the SOE into the ground and are then redeployed to other SOEs. The ACDP believes that besides holding those board members criminally and civilly liable for losses sustained by those SOEs, serious consideration should now be given to have these directors declared delinquent directors in terms of Section 162 of the Companies Act. This will prevent directors that have failed to fulfill their fiduciary duties to SOEs from ever being able to serve as directors again. He asks if you would support these suggestions. Thank you.
Honourable Deputy President.
Well, it goes without saying that if you are a board member and certain things happen under your watch, obviously somewhere you must take responsibility. It's not enough just to leave your role as a board member. You must, at a certain point, account for certain things that have happened under your watch. So I support that. Thank you.
The Honourable Singh.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. Thank you, Honourable Deputy President, for your response. Honourable Deputy President, before you assumed office as Deputy President, this government, ANC-led government, had undertaken to issue a board appointment framework for state-owned enterprises. And this announcement was widely welcomed at the time because we find that there are certain members, the chosen ones, who are appointed to a plethora of boards, and they really can't do justice to those boards. It becomes an income-generating option for them. Now, Honourable President, I'd like to know if there is going to be a time frame that you can give us on when this board appointment framework is going to be completed, so we can regularize the appointment of members to the boards of SOEs. Thank you.
The Honourable Deputy President.
Thank you. We have been assured by the Minister that they are in a process of developing those guidelines that will help us to select board members, criterion that will be set in a way to try and strengthen the functioning of those state-owned companies. But of course, beyond that, we are talking of a council that will be above those boards to look at their operations on a daily basis, to look at whether board members are doing their work as required, or they do attend meetings of the board as required, because some board members don't attend. Thank you.
The Honorable Mkalipi, EFF.
Ngiyabonga Somlomo. Deputy President, as a leader of government business in Parliament, but when you were a premier of Mpumalanga, the Guptas looted the coal mines in Emalahleni, which was Optimum Mine and Basfontein Mine, under your watch, and you didn't do anything. So the very same Guptas who were looting these mines were doing together with Duduzane Zuma, who arranged a Gupta jet for you to go to Russia. And you declared that in the legislature in Mpumalanga. So now, as a deputy president, how are you going to take Guptas and Duduzane Zuma to task? Because they are running away. What is your intervention? Thank you.
The Honorable Deputy President.
Thank you very much. As a country, I think we've got institutions that are qualified, that are responsible to hold those that are at odds with the law accountable. So it's not the Deputy President that must go after people and arrest them. We've got people that will look at the veracity of the cases that are before them. In fact, the Department of Mineral Resources, that it's a national function. As provinces, we don't issue license, we don't determine who must get a mining license. Now, the investigations that we are talking about, that are looking into the state capture and all the wrongdoings in these companies of government, would determine exactly what went wrong. Now, gradually people, those that are found to have violated certain things in their course of doing their work have been suspended, some have been taken to disciplinary hearings, some have resigned, and this process will continue. So I'm confident that no one will escape this process. So, Honourable Member, rest assured, whether I've been given a lift to hospital does not mean the Guptas, if they've done something wrong, they should not be brought to books. They will. If they've done something wrong, they will. I used to say this, that if you come across an accident and you find people trapped in a car and you are just passing, your duty as a citizen is to help those people, take them to hospital. And these people, they don't owe you anything for taking them to hospital. You are just helping them as a citizen. Thank you very much.
The Honorable Matsoni.
On a point of order, Speaker.
What's the point of order, Honorable Member?
Since the Deputy President have made a good example of an accident, can you please give us the address of the Guptas, where the Guptas and Duduzane is?
No, Honorable Member, that's not a point of order. Please let Honorable Matsoni ask her follow-up question.
He is a good citizen. You must give us the address.
Please proceed.
Thank you, Speaker. Deputy President, given that you are the leader of government business, it is therefore incumbent upon you to make sure that certain legal processes happen. And one of those legal processes is in the ESCOM inquiry that Parliament issues an edictal citation on the High Court of South Africa because we've tried to serve summons on the Gupta brothers and Duduzane Zuma, and they appear not to be in the country. So we need somewhere to serve summons on them so that the Speaker can then issue a warrant of arrest should they fail to appear before Parliament. Also, Dudu Myeni received a summons duly served by the sheriff in her home in Richards Bay, and she refused to appear before our committee, thus is in contempt of Parliament. It is therefore incumbent on the Speaker to issue a warrant of arrest. Can you please confirm to this House whether or not you are in the process of issuing an edictal citation and whether or not the warrant of arrest for Dudu Myeni has gone out? Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Honourable Deputy President.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. Well, I realize here that there's a confusion about my role as leader of government business. I'm a leader of government business as it relates to the work of the executive in this Parliament. I'm a leader of government business as it relates to the work of the executive in this Parliament. Not a leader of government business in the executive. Now, I am sure that this question finally will find an answer. There are no people that will escape our law. They will not escape our law. We have got institutions that will pursue these individuals and will find them. With those countries, wherever they are, there should be a way of sensitizing those countries that these people have got certain things to answer in South Africa. And there must be a way of getting them back to answer. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Deputy President. We now come to question number 9, asked by the Honourable Madela. The Honourable Deputy President.
Honourable Madela, youth unemployment is a challenge for the country. It imposes serious cost on our democracy. This calls for better ways to harness the energy of young people, their creativity and their flair, so that they can fully participate in our economy. Some of the interventions that government, together with social partners, has undertaken is coming up with Youth Employment Accord. This is a pillar of our efforts to get youth into labor market and into our economy. The accord establishes commitments in key areas such as education and training, work exposure and employment, as well as promotion of youth entrepreneurship and cooperatives. With regards to our commitment on education and training, TVET colleges enrollments have increased by 6% since 2013. This contributes in producing skills that our economy needs right now, as well as in terms of skills that for the future to respond to the growth of the economy and the changes in its structure. In addition to the increase in enrollment, there have been significant efforts to improve alignment of TVET curricula with industry. The signing of the Memorandum of Understanding between RCL Food and Milling and Ehlanzeni TVET College, as well as between Sasol and Hartsibande TVET College in 2016 and 17, are steps in the right direction. We would like to see more companies that are in and around TVET colleges support the Adopt a TVET College initiative that has been started by the Human Resource Development Council. The number of students graduating from universities has also increased by 6%, with an upward trend in the number of science, engineering, and technology graduates. This is encouraging as we prepare young people for the fourth industrial revolution and the economy of the future. Another notable improvement is with regards to cities, which have prioritized work placements. As a result, 40,000 TVET learners and 30,000 University of Technology students were successfully placed between 2013 and 2016. In terms of work exposure and employment, we have had 18% increase in the number of young people employed on contract position in national government departments. The number of permanent jobs taken by youth at provincial level has also increased by 9%. The Department of Labor offers public employment services through its labor centers. This includes work registration, employment counseling, and employment placement. To date, about 60% of workers registered and 75% of workers who underwent counseling and found employment through these centers are young people. The other area of work which continues to make a meaningful contribution is the expanded public works program. Almost 2 million young people have been, job opportunities have been created for young people through this EPWP program since 2013. And a further 150,000 young people have been recruited through other supporting programs. We will be thinking of ways that EPWP impact can be further enhanced and more meaningful work experience can be provided. For example, unemployed graduates with a background in public administration could be employed in our public schools as administrative assistants so that we can give them relevant work experience while allowing teachers to focus on teaching and less on administration. The social partners agreed that certain sectors, especially new industries, should be youth-focused sectors. This includes youth targets set aside in the green economy, the infrastructure sector, and the business process services sector. If we look at the public infrastructure in areas such as water and sanitation and the higher education build program, we find that youth now make up the majority of the employed in a third of all these projects. Further agreements on solar water heater installations are to be concluded with certain municipalities. The ITC has approved more than 3.5 billion for young enterprises since the signing of the accord. Over 898 million was disbursed by Small Enterprise Finance Agency for youth-owned enterprises, supporting a total of 44,000 SMMEs. The National Empowerment Fund has disbursed over 160 million to youth businesses. And the Gauteng provincial government has set aside 10% of its procurement budget for youth-owned enterprises. These numbers give a sense of the scope of our support for youth businesses and youth entrepreneurship. We continue to look at ways in which development finance institutions, the private sector, business incubators, and other stakeholders can work more effectively to support youth-owned businesses in the whole process from first inspiration to full commercialization. Mentoring can be enhanced, the cost of borrowing can be reduced, and we will explore the youth orientation of the Black Industrialist Program. The Youth Job Creation Initiative, launched in 2012, has placed over 35,000 learners and successfully provided learnerships and internships. The Youth Employment Service initiative is also a positive initiative aimed at creating 1 million paid internship for young people over the next 3 years. We'll continue to work with private sector to find further ways to address the youth jobs crisis. Social partners must place more emphasis on coordinated and sector-specific intervention. In order to address the challenges around coordination of youth employment and empowerment programs, we have developed an implementation framework that, among others, includes the establishment of a joint implementation committee to drive the implementation of Youth Employment Accord. It also seeks to identify new areas of collaboration with social partners in order to develop youth development programs that are sector-specific. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
The Honorable Mandela.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Thank you, Deputy President, for your comprehensive reply. Clearly, your reply indicates the seriousness to which the ANC government is taking youth matters, and in particular youth economic advancement. Deputy President, the ANC welcomes the recent launch of the Youth Employment Services on the 27th of March 2018 by President Ramaphosa. We believe that this heralds a new dawn in youth employment initiatives. This YES initiative aims to give practical expression to a key objective of the Youth Accord, namely to address youth unemployment. But, Honorable Deputy President, what has been the challenges to date that hampered the kind of progress in the implementation of the Youth Employment Accord that we would have loved to have seen? And how are they being resolved? Thank you very much.
The Honorable Deputy President.
Thank you very much. Like I've said, the Youth Employment Accord was a very good step in the right direction. And I've noted that probably our failure is in the coordination of all the social partners in the implementation of the Accord. This is one part that we seek to strengthen our coordination efforts and to look at other avenues that can help us to create employment. In this current report that I'm giving, in the main, the employment that has been created was only in the public sector. Now, we are starting to see more and more initiative in the private sector. That is why we welcome the YES initiative. What is missing in the YES initiative is that what will happen after that 1 year of these young people having gained the experience. Now, we've left that question with the coordinators to ensure that progressively when these young people leave that employment, at least they've got a paper that they can prove that they've done certain responsibilities, a paper that they can prove that they've got certain skills so that they can be employable in future. So yes, the weaknesses was coordination, which we seek to strengthen now. Thank you.
The Honorable Ngwezi.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Deputy President, in your response, you mentioned that South Africa is beginning to see more engineering graduates. The number is increasing, and I agree with you. But one other problem is that it is very difficult for people who have completed their studies to get internships and also the in-service trainings when they are a requirement for them to graduate at the university. And my question is that, what is being done to ensure that such students do not stagnate in their career paths due to lack of opportunity to acquire such practical training? Thank you.
The Honorable Deputy President.
Thank you very much. Probably we should go back to our education system. Now, in our minds here, I get it that we are sending our young people to school, prepare them to find employment elsewhere. We are not preparing these young people to be employers themselves. Now, we must shift, because these are young people who have got knowledge, who can use their knowledge to start their own businesses so that they can employ other people. So one initiative that we must strengthen is to try and support SMMEs. Every successful economy hinges and rests on small and medium enterprises that appoint 1 or 2 people, 10 people, 20 people. In that way, the economy strengthens. Now, we are not really discouraging professionals from seeking work, but we're also encouraging professionals to be employers themselves. So our education system must diversify, must prepare young people for the world of work, must also prepare young people to start their own businesses. That should be the attitude. Thank you.
Thank you. Honorable Ntangweni.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker and Deputy President. Thank you also for agreeing to giving us the addresses of the Guptas and Duduzani, since you are such a good citizen. The government of Jacob Zuma, which is your close friend, by the way, introduced an employment tax incentive which meant to provide about 1,000 rand subsidy to companies that employed young people. To date, we do not know how the incentive helped to ensure that young people are getting employed. What lessons have you learned from the employment tax incentives initiative, and how will you use those lessons to inform how your youth employment accord is structured? Thank you so much.
Deputy President.
Thank you. To be honest, really, I haven't learned, I have not interrogated that program, the success and failures of that program, and probably I'll be prepared to come back and I'll assess that program, whether are we getting the returns that we are expected to get by giving those companies those incentives so that we get our young people employed. I have not assessed that program. Thank you.
Thank you. Honorable Kado.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Does the Deputy President agree with the former Statistician General, Pali Lahlohle's remarks that under ANC rule since 1994, in comparison to their white, coloured and Indian compatriots, black youths have, and I quote, lost out in acquiring skills, which is the crux of youth unemployment and a sign of regression, close quote. If so, why has the ANC government allowed this regression to take place? And why has the implementation of the Youth Employment Accord failed to turn it around?
Deputy President.
Honourable Deputy Speaker, can I get the question exactly?
Sure, I'll ask it again, Deputy Speaker. Does the Deputy President agree with the former Statistician General Pali Lahlohle's remarks that under ANC rules since 1994, in comparison to their white, coloured and Indian compatriots, black youths have, and I quote, lost out in acquiring skills, which is the crux of youth unemployment and a sign of regression, close quote. If so, why has the ANC government allowed this regression to take place? And why has the implementation of the Youth Employment Accord failed to turn the regression around?
Deputy President.
Thank you. Well, I will agree with that assertion and probably explain why I agree. Because this is a country with a past. This is a country that is emerging from the shackles. Now, from where I come from, where I grew up, I'm aware that there are young people that never had an opportunity to go to school. I'm also aware that there are young people who dropped out of school because of various factors. And therefore, you have got a pool of young people that never set their foot in school, a pool of young people that dropped out for various reasons. Now, the biggest reason that made young people to drop out of school was poverty. And the ANC government then introduced the feeding scheme to allow children to have food. And you'll be surprised that through the introduction of this feeding scheme, that has encouraged young people to go to school because that's where they will find a meal. Now, some of the children managed to complete their schooling because they were motivated by this meal that they are getting. Now, I said in the earlier question that the percentage of young people that are qualifying in science, technology, it's increasing. That is a step in the right direction. The number of those young people who are completing matric, it's increasing instead of decreasing. It's a right step in the, the right step in the right direction. No. What is a problem now? We've got young people that have passed matric, that are not able to access higher education, that are in the middle, that have not passed matric very well. Some of these people are going to our TVET colleges, but the problem still exists. That means we must broaden our skills base. Don't look at only TVET colleges. Don't look at technology, University of Technologies. Don't look at universities. Create another level where you can train young people, give them skills. Those that have dropped out, ensure that you give them skills. Now, this should be the focus of government, because these children will never be forced into formal schooling again. They're old enough, some of them, to go back to school. All they need is a skill. So this is the situation that we're confronting with. It's not only getting these people into employment, but it's to getting these young people to acquire a skill. I'm not very sure whether I've tried to answer your question. I thought I tried. Answer your question.
Thank you, Deputy President. The next question is asked by Honorable Steenhuisen to the Deputy President. Deputy President.
Honourable members, it seems to me that this question is based on the underlying assumption that members of the executive are somehow reluctant to appear before the National Assembly to deal with their parliamentary responsibilities. At the outset, it is important to deal with any perception that suggests that members of the executive are not fulfilling their expected responsibilities and obligation in this House. As a matter of course, Parliament must hold all of us accountable on a range of matters pertaining the work of government. As a voice of the ordinary people, Parliament must be respected to ensure that the work of the executive is subjected to scrutiny and the necessary accountability measures are undertaken. The executive take this responsibility very serious. That is why we respond to questions. That is why I'm standing here today. And questions that are sent to the executive must be answered. And members of the executive, they do appear before this House to do their duties. This does not suggest that there are no concerns from the honorable members. Where concerns have been raised, we are committed to ensuring that corrective measures are implemented to maximize the participation of all the executive members in the House. We have taken practical measures to deal with the problem of non-attendance of parliamentary programs by members of the executive. Among other key measures, we have streamlined communication to ensure that where ministers are unable to attend, such should be communicated to presiding officers way in advance so that alternative arrangements could be made. We have introduced a roster on the attendance of parliamentary sessions by members of the executive. We intend appointing 3 members of the executive to assist with the monitoring the attendance of parliamentary session by our honorable ministers. We are introducing monitoring and tracking mechanisms to ensure that members of the executive respond timelessly to parliamentary questions. In this regard, we send proactive reminders to ensure that ministers deal with outstanding parliamentary questions on time. It is therefore expected that there will be great improvement in the future. Honourable members, as we implement these improvement measures, it is also worth pointing out that it is incumbent upon Parliament to enforce its constitutionally defined role and powers. The expectation on the side of the executive is that this should be respected in line with obligation placed on each and every one of us to promote and protect the virtues of our Constitution. Ultimately, we all want the relationship between Parliament and the executive to be harmonious. We want it to be focused on the agenda of advancing the interests of the electorate in a manner that is interdependent and reinforcing. Our energies must be focused on producing concrete outcomes that places the interests and the development of the people at the center. That should be our preoccupation. Thank you very much.
Honorable Steenhuisen.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Let me begin by thanking the Deputy President for his answer. And we would certainly, from this side of the House, welcome any intervention to improve the attendance, which we must admit, since the new dawn of this new administration, has not been what it should. We've even had a situation where only a single member of the executive was present in the House to answer to members' statements. But I'm very glad that the Deputy President has agreed with me, and I'm sure he'll continue to agree with me, that executive responsibility and accountability is an essential tool for our democratic health as a nation. and that the Constitution of the Republic in Section 55(2) and in Section 92 provide very clear and peremptory clauses to ensure that this House must hold the executive accountable, and in turn, the executive has obligations placed on it to ensure that it accounts to this House and provides full and regular reports concerning matters under their control. I was therefore most disturbed to learn of the fact that the economic freedom fighters proposed to effect an amendment to the rules of the National Assembly in order to significantly reduce the number of times that you, the Deputy President, account to this House, from once a month when we're sitting to once every 3 months. This will significantly reduce the opportunity of exercising oversight and accountability of you, Honourable Deputy President, as the leader of government business as well. I would therefore like to ask you, Deputy President, whether you are in favour of, in fact, reducing your accountability responsibilities in this House, and whether you've met any member of the EFF to discuss this rather bizarre request.
Deputy President.
Thank you.
On a point of order, Deputy Speaker.
Yes,
Before
what's the
the
point
Deputy
of order?
President answer.
What's the point
I
of
think
order?
the member must withdraw that question. It's disingenuous and ask it rather to us as the EFF. That is not a matter so he must withdraw that question and come and ask it to us.
No, Honourable Member.
He's being opportunistic. We will remove your
Honourable
mayor in Nelson Mandela.
Order. Honourable members have a right to ask any question.
Order, Deputy
Yeah.
Speaker.
Deputy Speaker, they tried that announcement and
Order,
it didn't
order,
work.
Deputy Speaker.
No. Order, Honourable members. Yes, Honourable Member.
I think it's very opportunistical for Honourable John Steenhuisen to raise this thing because it's a matter of the Chief Whip's Forum. And we debated this matter this morning, including him, in the Chief Whip's Forum. So to bring this matter here,
Honourable
he
members.
is displaying an opportunism
Honourable Member.
on his side.
You are making a political statement. That's not a point of order. No,
On
that's
a
not a
point of
point of
order,
order.
Deputy
What's your
Speaker.
point of order?
The Honourable Steenhuisen must just remember I'm the convener of Gauteng, so we still have Johannesburg and so on.
To quote my colleague, Ms. Oni, bring it on.
Deputy President, please respond.
Well, thank you.
Honourable
Thank you.
members, be quiet. Oh, it's not election time yet. Oh, please, quiet, quiet, quiet.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Deputy President, some zeal. Yeah.
Well, I hear that you are asking for my opinion. And I'm aware that you're still discussing the matter where you are discussing it. And I will also want to hear the views of that meeting where you're discussing this matter. Here's my opinion. My opinion is that you must understand that the members of the executive, they are responsible in between to run the affairs of the country. As much as they must come and account to this parliament, but parliament must be considerate that they must also have an opportunity to do their work and service the people. That is very important. I was looking at today, while we were in cabinet, there are issues that will require, for instance, Minister of Health in the Northwest. Now, I then realized that probably the life of ministers, it's a very difficult life. That is why we have introduced a roster that certain ministers should be in the House while certain ministers are allowed to do work. Well, you can have me as many times as you want. I'm here with you. I'm not going to run away. Well, I'm not part of your meeting, but I'm saying if you want me, I'm available. Anytime. I won't run away from you. I've tried to answer your question. You are very disruptive. Because I'm trying to answer you, you are talking.
Deputy Speaker, he didn't answer the aspect of the question was whether he's met anybody from the EFF to discuss this proposal.
No,
it was a direct question.
No, Honorable.
But you know, Deputy Speaker, he was supposed to ask us in the Chief Whip's Forum.
No,
so why you keep on asking this boring question? He's got nothing to do. He's got nothing to ask here. So he must stop using the EFF's name.
Honorable Mkalipe, you are out of order. To write, no, you are out of order, both of you. Just on your hind legs and you speak without being allowed to speak. Just have some order, please, man. Where's school? Babu Mtlong. Awusukuma ubuzo wakho umbuzo.
Deputy President, SCOPA reported a few weeks ago that the Department of Water and Sanitation was bankrupt as a result of mismanagement by the former Minister Nomvula Mokonyane, who looted the department during her tenure in that department as a minister. As a leader of government business, committed to rooting out corruption and mismanagement, do you think it is proper for Ms. Nomvula Mokonyane to continue as a cabinet member with all the cloud of maladministration hanging over her head? Would you please give us a signal, Deputy President?
Deputy President.
Well, thank you. I would really strongly discourage members to allege, come with allegations, because I can't help you when you're coming with allegations. The only way I can help you is that if you know of any wrongdoing by any of the ministers, please report it to the relevant authorities. Now, it's not a place where we can discuss allegations and say we're going to do this because we're alleging. I don't know.
Point of
so
order.
the best way is to, if there's anything that you know that Minister Mokonyane has done, please report it to the relevant authority.
Point of order, Deputy Speaker.
Thank you.
Point of order, Deputy Speaker.
What's your point of order?
The point of order is, this matter has been seized with, SCOPA has been seized with this matter. It's a public knowledge. It's not an allegation at all. So the Deputy President must not try to mislead the House.
No.
Because it's not an allegation at all.
Honorable members, Deputy President, please proceed.
Well, I don't want to mislead the House, but if SCOPA is seized with the matter, and I'm sure SCOPA will have a way to deal with the matter, because the matter is before with SCOPA. SCOPA is not just a committee that will listen to a matter and ends there. SCOPA can propose sanctions. SCOPA is a committee of this Parliament. Parliament, it's a body that has got authority that can impose sanctions. So don't pass the buck. Thank you very much.
Honorable Singh, thank you, Deputy President.
Thank you, thank you, Deputy Speaker. Deputy President,
There's a little shelf in your desk there. Just keep it there for now. And we'll direct it to the Deputy President office if you so wish. Go ahead, Honorable Singh.
Thank you, Honorable Deputy Speaker. One welcomes the initiatives that the Honorable Deputy President spoke about. Tracking, making sure that ministers answer questions and having a roster. But, Honorable Deputy President, the accountability of the executive to Parliament and the public at large extends beyond just standing up here and answering questions, whether they are oral or written questions. And in this regard, I want to refer to correspondence that we as members of Parliament write to ministers. And I can tell you, Honorable Deputy President, it leaves a lot to be desired when you don't even get an acknowledgement of your correspondence, let alone an appropriate response. Now, to this end, Honorable Deputy President, there is what is called PLOs, not Palestinian Liberation Organization, not parliamentary political officers, but parliamentary liaison officers. They are highly paid people who are meant to bridge the gap between a member of parliament and the department and the executive.
Honorable Singh.
Will you, Honorable President, look into the efficacy of PLOs so that we can get appropriate responses from the executive? Thank you.
Honorable Deputy President.
Well, we are going to communicate that to the members of the executive, all ministers in writing, the concern that you are raising. But of course, to try and track whether, if there's a correspondence written to Minister of Higher Education, maybe you can cite us as our office so that we can remind Minister, you have received this letter, have you responded to this letter? In that way, we are trying to assist one another. I'm aware that ministers are all over Pretoria, Cape Town, so it is my responsibility of leader of government, business, to remind members of certain responsibilities that they must execute in the House. So instead of blaming one another, let's try and resolve the problem. Thank you.
Thank you. Honorable Malloy.
No, thank you very much, Deputy Speaker. Deputy President, the expectation from members of this House, which is of course legitimate, is that the ministers should appear before parliamentary committees every morning. They should be in the House every afternoon to answer questions, to respond to statements, at times just to sit, listen, and take notes. Equally, we expect departments to ensure that those officials that are assigned with the responsibility of the day-to-day running, they operate effectively. We expect ministers to be in different parts of the country to attend to service delivery needs of our people. We expect ministers to be in different parts of the world to attend to their international obligations. And I'm happy that today you have outlined as to what systems are you putting in place to ensure that ministers do attend to this matters. Can you attend to communication as well between the executive and the legislature? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for the comment. We will attend to communication. We are going to try and ensure that the work of Parliament does not suffer, and also ensure that the work of the executive does not suffer. But all of us, we complement one another. So we'll take a discussion with the presiding officers so that the House must proceed to do its work and discharge its responsibilities, and government also must proceed to do and discharge its responsibility. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy President. Honorable Deputy President, the next question is asked by Honorable van Schalkwyk.
Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker. The broad framework for building strong partnership lies in the National Development Plan and Vision 2030. The social contract envisaged here will help propel South Africa onto a higher developmental trajectory, as well as build a more cohesive and equitable society. During his inaugural State of the Nation address, the President outlined our overall vision on partnerships and social dialogue to achieve our goals of building a more inclusive economy that will help to create decent work opportunities on a scale that will have impact on poverty, inequality, and unemployment. Our implementation plan entails a number of elements, and I wish to share a few of these with this House. Firstly, the President recently announced the appointment of the investment envoys, which will be able to take the positive sentiment towards South Africa and encourage investors to invest in our economy, and by bringing their money into our fixed investment, building factories, investing in mines, and promoting infrastructure development. These envoys will work closely with our local and foreign investors. Secondly, to fund infrastructure development and speed up implementation, we have made changes to boards of some of our state-owned companies to restore market confidence and improve governance, drawing on expertise available within the wider business community. In the coming year, the country will spend more than R250 billion to bring new schools, healthcare facilities, water infrastructure, energy, transport, and education facilities and housing, you can name it. To obtain more from these higher levels of investment, we need greater coordination within the state as well as within our social partners. The Minister of Economic Development and the Presidential Infrastructure Coordination Council has commenced discussion with key financial institutions, banks, and insurance companies to unlock financial resources which can be channeled to projects that can yield high social and economic returns. Thirdly, to boost local production. We are working with manufacturers and are engaging both state-owned companies and private sector retailers to boost local procurement. The discussion will be focusing on ways to increase the opportunities for all South African-based manufacturing and agricultural operations, which includes small businesses and Black-owned and youth-owned enterprises. Consumers and trade unions can be key to the success of these initiatives as we shift from importing all that we need into becoming a nation of manufacturers, a nation of farmers, and a nation of miners. Fourthly, to address the high levels of economic inclusion, we are pursuing measures to open up sectors for small businesses, and Black South Africans will be assisted in this case. Together, small and medium businesses support more than 60% of all employment in South Africa. So it's important to support small and medium businesses. Small businesses, especially small Black business, must be given every opportunity to succeed. One of the initiatives to this end are proposed changes to the Competition Act to address high levels of economic concentration. Fifthly, to build inclusivity, government announced a range of initiatives during the SONA debate, including greater level of industrial funding, progress with implementation of basic wage floor in the country through a national minimum wage, consideration of greater worker participation in the company governance arrangement, and improved payment of small businesses suppliers within 30 days. The President will in due course be providing further details on the broader accord to underpin economic recovery and shift the economy into a new growth path that is characterized by high levels of growth, but as important, a different, more inclusive model of growth. Fortunately, for South Africa, social dialogue is embedded in our psyche, our nation, and there's an enabling institutional infrastructure to deepen dialogue on matters of national priority. Let us also recall that in his State of the Nation address, the President called on the nation to mobilize and build partnership for jobs, investment, youth employment, optimizing the partnership between government and all sectors of society. These partnerships will culminate into various summits where the role and contribution of each of the social partners will be articulated in detail. Steps have been taken to lay the groundwork for the Job Summit, and the President will be engaging with leaders of business, leaders of labor, and the community to concretize plans for that Job Summit before the end of the month. Details on the Job Summit will be announced in due course. Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker.
The next is Honorable van Schalkwyk.
Thank you, Honorable Deputy President, for your response. Honorable Deputy President, we know, however, that even though government has great plans, in practice, some employers, especially in the private sector, are just ignoring these and therefore are not implementing them. As leader of government business, Honorable Deputy President, do you have strategies in place to ensure monitoring the implementation of these plans to realize transformation, especially in the private sector? Because as we know, in order to effectively address unemployment, poverty and inequality, real transformation in our society and our workplaces must indeed take place. I thank you.
Deputy President.
Thank you very much. As someone who's deputizing the President, assisting the President to achieve these plans, I'll always be available to assist that our plans gets realized. Of course, my duty as a leader of government business, it's a bit far from what is expected here to get our economy working, to get the required investment, to get the private sector and civil society working, all of us to realize these plans. I'm going to be part of a team. The entire executive work together to ensure that we realize these objectives that we've set for ourselves. Thank you.
Thank you. Honorable Mutau.
Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker. Deputy President, I'm glad you referred to the NDP. Yes. It's at the heart of all of this thing. Yes. The big challenge here is this. Year in, year out, since this document was accepted here, we hear your colleagues standing on that podium making these promises that you're making today. Disappointingly, however, whatever your government has promised to do or has done in this regard has failed to do the job. Now, if you doubt what I'm saying, let's look at this. Economic growth remains very weak. Some call it anemic. Jobs continue to be lost, with unemployment currently at more than 9 million desperate job seekers and counting, and more than 17 million poor people dependent on social grants to survive. The question, how will your plans get the country to the 5% annual income economic growth envisaged by the NDP, given the rampant corruption, fraud, and looting infesting government departments, state-owned enterprises, and other state entities? We've just learned that theft is the biggest problem for SAA. How are you going to deal with this?
President.
Thank you. Firstly, probably the criticism that you are putting, maybe it's fair. To say, as government, we need to find a coordinated way to ensure that the National Development Plan is implemented without failure. And we should put mechanisms in place that will help us measure our performance. At times, if our performance is not good enough, there should be ways of improving those areas where we think we are not performing. So we take that criticism, but of course you should be happy that the sentiment and the mood in the country is good enough for all of us to go back to work. Investment, confidence, investors' confidence, it's back again. So it's not all lost. We can correct some of the failures that we've observed and acknowledged and improve on those failures. So I'm still confident that as a country, if we work together, government, the private sector, and the civil society, all our social partners, we can realize the aspirations of the National Development Plan. All of us. Now, let us capitalize on the environment that is conducive now. That is why you saw the president, I repeat this, the step taken by the president to go out and say to investors, come and invest in the country. That is a very important step. Now we should prepare ourselves to welcome those investors so that we can turn our economy around. We can make South Africa a better place. As long as we've got a high rate of unemployment, as long as there's a high rate of poverty, inequality, we are not going to realize what we set ourselves to realize in the NDP. So it's important to deal with certain aspects in our economy that are holding us back in order to try and achieve what we've set ourselves to achieve. Yes, we are going to fight corruption. We're standing firm and saying no to corruption. It's a right thing. You have seen government taking practical steps, and these steps are going to be pursued. Now, not only corruption at the national level, corruption at the provincial level, up to local level, but we must not only focus on the public sector. We are also condemning corrupt practices in the private sector, which we call it different names. Corruption is corruption. You can't call corruption colluding. It's corruption. So we must pursue corruption wherever it rears its head if we want to be fair and want to take the country forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Honorable Esterhuizen.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Honorable Deputy President, everyone would like to know the government's strategic plans, as it seems that with every new year, we have new economic and development plans. Won't you agree, though, Mr. Deputy President, that a core issue here is that the expenditure of this government and its state-owned entities is totally out of control? And that's why they cannot provide the services that are required to lift our people out of poverty and inequality and unemployment. Work closely with the private sector, you said in a previous answer. Very close, I would say. State-owned entities are already indebted to the private sector to the sum of 1.3 trillion rand. As the leader of business, and to make a real impact on the eradication of poverty, inequality and employment, should not rather be concerned with the increased borrowing, which in return reduces the funds for social and economic spending? Thank you.
Deputy President.
Thank you. I wouldn't say the expenditure in the SOCs, it's getting out of hand. What we have noted, it's not getting out of hand. What we have noted, it's money that have been stolen. That I don't call it expenditure. Expenditure, it's money that is utilized on an agreed plan. Now, we have not used our resources correctly in order to get certain desired outcomes. That is what, especially in our SOCs, that is what we are currently trying to deal with, to just get these SOEs to be get back into business, do what they are meant for. Now, we are not going to probably opt for privatizing these SOCs. There is no proven case that privatizing will be the solution. But all what we are encouraging is that let us address the weaknesses and probably put on a new plan that will seek to address unemployment, that will seek to address poverty and the inequalities. Now, every effort that we're doing as government, we are trying to address the burden of poverty. We are mindful of the fact that the number of people on our social grants, that list is growing, which is indicating the impact of poverty. Now, we must at one stage, take out these people from these social grants so that they can gainfully find employment, work, and contribute positively to our economy. So yes, things that we have set for ourselves, all these things are achievable as long as we focus and ensure that we utilize our meager resources sparingly and correctly. But in this case, as a country, we must be fair. As much as we criticize government for wrongdoings, for not achieving certain things, the private sector also must be equally criticized where it's not doing right. So we must balance that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Speaker.
Honorable Sheikh.
Point
yes.
of order. Speaker, I want to bring this to your attention before we move too far along. Speaker, earlier on in a rise in terms of Rule 85, Deputy Speaker, no member may impute improper motives to any other member or cast personal reflections upon a member's integrity or dignity or verbally abuse a member in any other way. Earlier, Speaker, Deputy Speaker, when the Honourable Mokalipi stood up here, you said you can't just jump up on your hind legs. Now, it is not a joke, really. It's really, and I'm really disappointed in the ANC caucus who feel that this is a laughing matter because you are telling a female member of parliament that she's an animal. She's jumping up on her hind legs like a dog. You know, this is a human being, and you are impinging on the dignity or impugning on the dignity of a woman, a female. You know, it is no surprise that they are saying that men are trash. We can't refer to a woman in that and say that she's jumping up on her hind legs. And I request respectfully, Deputy Speaker, that you withdraw.
Take your seat. Honourable Member, I said that to both Honourable Steenhuisen and Honourable Mkalipe. They did the same thing. I withdraw. I will not put any conditions. I withdraw. It's fine. Go ahead, Honourable Deputy President.
When you withdraw, you just have to go out. You withdraw.
Honourable Member, take your seat.
Mam Togo, go and chair. You must go, Chief. You call me a dog here. Call me a dog. You must go out, Chief. Go.
Honourable Member, just take your seat and behave. Go ahead, Deputy President.
I'm done with that follow-up question.
Oh, sorry, it's not. I should be asking for Honourable Sheikh. Is he here?
Thank
No,
you,
it's okay.
Deputy Speaker. Honourable Mwabe will take the question, the follow-up question.
Go ahead, Honourable Mwabe.
Actually, Deputy Speaker, our question was around the job summit that the President spoke about in his State of the Nation address this year. But on the initial response of the Deputy President, we feel that he has covered our question. And we are indeed covered. Thank you.
Thank you. Honourable members, the Honourable Deputy President, the next question is asked of you of Honourable Mchai. Sir.
Chair, Honourable Mchai is not available owing to some business at home that was very urgent. So we are therefore asking this question to stand over.
Although, Chief Whip, if members are ready, I guess we can proceed. But if you are, there's a proposal, do you agree that it stand down? Yes, no, he's not here. So, but the question is, it's already asked, it's the House's question. So there's a feeling that...
Chair, Deputy Speaker, our rules say we entertain questions with members in attendance. Now, this member has asked that because he will not be in the House owing to serious matters at home, that the question stands over. He is a whip. He has spoken to the Chief Whip on this matter.
Okay.
Thank you, Chair.
All right. In that case, we can't debate this. I assume we agree that it stand down. Honourable members, before we proceed any further, I'd like to make the following announcement. And it's important that we listen to the announcement. It relates to your transport back to the villages, that if you're planning study groups, don't cancel them and go straight to the transport that is arranged. There are only 2 buses at 7:15 and one at 18 hours. There will be no other transport. So if you plan to complain that you are left behind, know that I will protect those that would have left you behind. So please, this is an arrangement because of the current environment. Let's be organized and do things properly. There's one at 5:15 and the last one at 6 o'clock. So there is no, those are the only 2 times. Honorable members, anything else you will hear in those buses that relates to the transport. Honorable members.
Deputy Chair.
Honorable members.
Deputy Chair.
Yes, honorable member.
Just a point of clarity, sir, please. Would you confirm those times? Is it 7:15 or is it 17:15?
It's 17:15 and 18 hours. That's a 21st century man there. Honourable members, that concludes the business of the day, and the House is adjourned. Thank you, Deputy President.
Right, as you heard there, that's the conclusion, and what you've been watching has been the 5th session of Parliament, of course. Questions for oral reply by the Deputy President Mabuza. He had a number of questions that were put to him during the course of this afternoon. Amongst other things, ratings agencies came up, governance issues came up, youth employment accord came up, and accountability to the executive. The MPs raising some concerns, but the Deputy President answering questions, and at times there were the usual standing up by some of the MPs, point of orders, but it ran generally on time and has just concluded, and that's where we're going to leave it for the time being. When we come back, we'll come back with other news for you. Stay with us.